They all came up with it together with a desire to give more to founders than financial capital, where social capital is a massively underestimated asset. One connection can really, if you really think about it, can mean a lot more to a company than a bunch of money.
Welcome to the Startup Passport by Frontwalker. Today I'm joined by Alexander Broekman. Thank you very much for joining. You're the founder of Superconnectors. So can you tell us a little bit about what Superconnectors does?
So Superconnectors is a format and software that engages a crowd of people that really want to give introductions to founders that really need them. And that's basically something that started back in 2021 here in Rotterdam.
And how would that look in practice? So let's imagine I'm a founder and I need to be heard, or I feel like I need to be heard for what I'm working on. So how could Superconnectors help?
So first of all, you apply. You don't just get selected on stage. You first apply, and we basically go into a conversation with you to really figure out what is something called the critical ask. And the critical ask is, what is that one problem that you're really struggling with that your own network cannot solve? All right, so that's why you need the help of others to help you solve that problem through an introduction, right? So that's basically the essence. And the way we help is that you have a 7-minute slot that you present in front of the audience what the challenge is, what the critical ask is. And then the entire audience, through their phones, can basically make suggestions which appear on the screen. And it's basically a competition on who can help you the best. And that's basically what Superconnectors is. And you, as a founder, then select the best suggestion. And whoever has the most points by the end of the event wins the Superconnectors prize, which is often like a bottle of champagne. But just it's just a fun, playful way to help people help better.
So that means that the audience that is at those events is also very important because they're essentially, well, the ones giving the recommendations. So what kind of people are in the audience? And can you just go, let's say, or do you also have a certain way of picking the audience?
Yeah, there's a selection process also on the other side. So it's basically people that are able to help, meaning their network must, really reach far enough or high enough in a company to really make an impact, but also willing to help. So I've had people that applied to Superconnectors, and the first question out of their mouth was, "What's in it for me? What's in it for me?" And I was like, if the fact that you can help someone is not enough for you, you should not be here. So it has to be a bit of both. And on the other hand, it also doesn't help if you really want to help, but you can only make introductions to people that live in your neighborhood, right? So you need to be able to have a far enough extending network to really make an impact.
And is there a specific type of a founder or a specific industry that you're looking at in terms of helping founders, or is it really like all through the bunch? As long as you're in line with the founder's vision, then this person can apply or can essentially make it to the event.
Yeah, so we started mostly in tech events, but tech nowadays is basically everything.
It is everything.
Same like with AI, right? So everything is becoming AI. But we started with these more generic tech conferences like Web Summit / we would always do a side event there. And this event was actually born here in Rotterdam as a side event to Upstream. So it's also nice to be here. So we started generic, and then over time we saw that it's also quite interesting to do verticals. So like a stage which is only dedicated to port, which again in Rotterdam makes a lot of sense, or a stage which is only dedicated to health companies. And that makes the connections a lot more granular because you only invite these really specific people that have a really broad network in that vertical. So that makes it more effective. Yeah.
And then at the very start of the interview, you said that Superconnectors is not only an event, but also software, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so what is the software side of things? How does that look like?
So it's kind of like, have you ever played Kahoot?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so it's like Kahoot in a way, that it's a game you play. There's a game show master, and we basically created software that allows people through a QR code to make suggestions. The software then also connects you right after the event, and it also keeps up with where did that connection end, right? Sometimes it yields to nothing, right? The introduction gets made, nothing happens. But sometimes it's also really interesting to know what happens all the way at the end. And that's a software basically that we license out to event organizers. So imagine you're the region of Zuid-Holland and you're organizing 20, 30 events per year for startups. You're investing a lot of money in them. All these connections get made. Well, what's the outcome? All right, so that's basically something we had to make for ourselves because we wanted to see how effective we were at making connections. And now that it works for ourselves, we are licensing it out to others.
And how did you come up with Superconnectors when you founded it originally? Do you have a history of being an entrepreneur yourself, or why did you want to help entrepreneurs?
So I did not come up with the idea of Superconnectors, and that's something actually I said yesterday also during our event. It's actually the community that came up with it. It's the entire local community of Rotterdam, like people from Innovation Quarter, people from the organizers of Upstream, my co-founders, which afterwards left, but they all came up with it together with the desire to give more to founders than financial capital, but where social capital is a massively underestimated asset. Right, so the one connection can really, if you really think about it, can mean a lot more to a company than a bunch of money.
And now that you have been attending also so many events where entrepreneurs talked about what their challenges are there some challenges that you can pick out that are most common for entrepreneurs? Of course, it very much depends on what kind of company they're working on, how far they are, but is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, obviously, like we see 4 categories: is access to market, talent, knowledge, and capital. So obviously, the number one is always like, I'm looking for money. However, there's a lot of formats, pitch events, networking events that already facilitate for that. So we don't really overemphasize on, hi, I'm looking for $1 million. We are way more interested in something that is closer to a really particular problem. So for example, even if it's a financial ask, we had a company that was doing cargo bikes, the fleets of cargo bikes and renting them out. The problem is that most venture capital firms would not back them to buy the fleet because it's too risky. They wanted them to lease it, which gives a very different kind of cost structure. Now, that's a difficult problem to solve, because if all the VCs don't want to fund you because you want to purchase it, you have to find a completely new financing structure and someone that's willing to do that. So one of the suggestions at the time was to work with people that pay for buying ships, because ships get funded by dividing the value of the ship over many people. Like, lots of people invest in buying the ship, and all the profits of that ship then get shared with the people that invested in the beginning. So they were like, oh, could be an interesting way to do it as well.
And last question: where do you see Superconnectors going within, let's say, the next 5 years? Do you have a vision for that? Is it just helping as many founders as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually see Superconnectors as something that will be carried by the individual cities, not by us, right? So we want to empower cities around the world to empower their local ecosystems. And we just want to do that through building really good formats and software that enable people to connect better by leveraging each other's network in a fun way. So we're basically doing that by building games that work in different settings and formats of networking, and data structures that also allow you to keep track of like the output and the outcome, so that you can improve how you network. But the local communities will come up with that. So we'll be in definitely in the 50 biggest cities that really benefit from good connections.
That's great, and we'll be very interested to follow that. So thank you for all of the insights on Superconnectors and for joining the podcast.
Thank you.